everybody, Tom from Patchwerks here. Today we're going to talk about this exciting new synthesizer from Korg, the miniKORG 700FS. Let's get into it. Alright, so here we've got the miniKORG 700FS, brand new from the Korg factory in Japan. And this is a strange looking synthesizer, and you might ask, well, what's going on here? It looks a little strange because of its history. So this synthesizer is a remake of Korg's very first synthesizer, and in fact it was the first synthesizer ever made in Japan. So that was the miniKORG K1. It was the first synthesizer to actually own the Korg name, because at that time the company that became Korg was just making organs. It was called the KO Organ Company, something like that. So they smashed KO and organ together to become Korg. Now, as an organ company, this synthesizer was really intended to go on top of organs. So that's why it has this distinctive shape, where you've got a small keyboard up here for a lead, and then underneath you've got most of your synthesizer controls underneath the keyboard. And that was intended for organ players to be able to change things at will, sitting at an organ, and then use this synthesizer on top to play their leads. That said, the retro styling is definitely something unique in the marketplace today. And everyone who's seen this thing at Patchwerks just loves it. It's gorgeous. So as we said, this is a remake of an earlier synthesizer from Korg, the miniKORG. Korg has been lovingly going back into the analog libraries of the past and reissuing some great synthesizers. That includes the ARP Odyssey, the ARP 2600 full-size, and now the Korg 700 full-size FS. And we did have the 2600 FS here at Patchwerks made by Korg, and it just has not only a wonderful sound, but an extremely beautiful build quality. So this Korg also shares that same attention to detail for the new reissues from Korg. It also comes with a beautiful case that you can put this thing in and transport at will. I will say the case and the instrument smells exactly like the ARP 2600. So for me at least, it has that nice woody vintage feel, even though it's brand new. So let's start hearing the Korg 700FS. So earlier we said that the Korg 700FS is a remake of the Korg 700. That's not totally true, because the Korg 700 was quickly succeeded by the 700S 1 year later, from 1973 into 74. And the 700S added all the controls that you can see here. The original Korg 700 didn't have any of this, it just had a wooden panel here. And what you can see here is a second oscillator, a little joystick, which is a new addition in the FS, and some other controls that augment the sound of the regular 700. If we leave the effect off, that's the off position right here, we're only using the original single oscillator synthesizer. So let's just listen to that. Korg calls their filters the Traveler, and you can see in this control here, there's two knobs, or two sliders, I mean, one for a high pass and one for a low pass. There's the low pass. There's the high pass. And interestingly, these two knobs have little pieces on them that prevent them from going the opposite way. Check it out. So I'm just touching on the top or the bottom knob to move both sliders at the same time. But of course you can open it up. When they're like this together, it's more like a bandpass filter. But let's open it up a bit. So a nice rich sound from the Korg's oscillators. So after the Traveler section, you can see these two multi-position switches. One is blue, has a blue cap, and one is red. The blue is for your octave control, and the red is for your wave shape of the oscillator. So there's 5 wave shapes to choose from. There's a triangle, a pulse, sawtooth, and 2 of what they call chorus, which sounds like a detuned oscillator to me. So 2 different settings of detune there. Personally, I like the chorus settings because they sound rich and full, especially with the Traveler. So that's great. To the left of these two multi-position switches, we see an attack and a percussion. So since this was made in the early 70s in Japan, they're using different terms for things that we all take for granted today that are standard, like a filter, low pass, for example. Korg calls it the Traveler. And similar, this isn't your standard envelope. You can think of it as an attack and decay in a way. So let's play with that. So that's with the attack all the way up in the up position. If we increase the attack, this happens. Right, so simple there. Let's listen to what happens with percussion. That's with percussion all the way up. So in a way, that's like adjusting the sustain portion of an ADSR, right? Now you'll notice these knobs are color-coded, and they correspond to some of the functioning of these other switches. For example, there's a sustain switch here that has an orange cap. It may be hard to see in that view, but just as these sliders have orange caps, that means that these two functions are related. So if I turn on sustain, the envelope properties will change. So without it, here's a longer percussion. But if I turn on sustain, so in a way that's like the release stage of an ADSR. Okay, so that's pretty cool. Moving farther to the right here, we've got a repeat, which repeats the note that you're holding down. It's pretty cool. This can act as an arpeggiator if you like. There's also a hold, and I don't think the hold appears on the original, so this is a new addition. So that just literally holds the last note that you play. One thing that I skipped over is a red switch here that's called bright. Actually, I skipped over two. One is called expand and the other one is called bright. The sliders on the Traveler are red, so you might think that these go together, and they do. What bright does is it turns on resonance for the Traveler filter. So let's see, this is with the Traveler resonance off, the brightness off. Here's with it turned on. That just sounds great to me, so I'll probably leave it on for the rest of the demo. I'll turn on hold for a sec and just play with the filter. Check out the sound. I just love that. Okay, so the next switch over here that's red is called expand. So let's just hear what this does. It might be easier to explain with audio. So it's a subtle effect, but essentially what expand is doing is introducing a little bit of contour to the shape of the Traveler, kind of like an envelope modulating a traditional filter. right, so about the last two functions we haven't talked about yet on this control panel on the bottom are the vibrato and portamento. So vibrato is standard vibrato, like pitch modulation of your oscillator. So these knob caps are blue, so there's a vibrato switch to engage it, and then there's both a speed and a depth slider all the way over on the right-hand side. It's kind of hard to hear. Let me change the settings here. There you can hear it. It's funny, in Korg's manual, they like to say, keep these in the middle, about the middle of the range to hear the instrument sing. And you'll see that a lot in Korg's text about the 700FS. So the other blue capped switch here is called delay vibrato. And all that does is it waits a little while before introducing the vibrato to your sound. So with the delay off, the vibrato will sound like just now. If we turn on the delay, it'll wait a few moments before introducing that delay to the oscillator. I'll turn off the chorus so you can hear it better. Pretty cool. And then last, finally, we've got a green knob cap on this switch and on this slider for portamento. So we've been using it off. There's no portamento introduced. And now, with portamento control in the middle and turned on, so that's pretty great. And I personally love portamento when repeat is engaged. So that's pretty fun. And I just realized one of the newest additions for this Korg 700FS that I totally skipped over is the spring reverb. So that's all the way over here on the left. This wasn't present on the original. And just check out that arpeggio sound with the portamento and me having introduced the spring reverb now. So that just sounds lovely. We can tap the sides to hear the spring. There it goes. Sorry, Korg. All right, so far we've explored everything that the Korg 700FS can do with all the controls that are under the keyboard. And again, those are like the original K1 miniKORG 700. However, let's move on to this new set of controls that Korg has on the left side of the panel. And some of these were on the second version of the miniKORG, the 1974 700S. So essentially what this section does is really expand the possibilities for your sound design. All of what we've seen so far is a single oscillator, dual filter synthesizer. But this section introduces a second oscillator. So I can turn on this second oscillator with the first switch here called Effect. So now you hear that second oscillator come in, and the mode of the oscillator, it's mixed in different ways into the synth. And what we have it on right now is called Duet. You can see this red capped knob that's multi-position like the other wave-shaped knob down here. So in Duet, you can think of this as just two independent oscillators, and then these controls with the blue are the pitch of that second oscillator. So now it's on a major third, I believe. Minor third. It has an octave range. That was the coarse control, and of course you also have a fine control. So that's Duet. However, we have modulator 1, modulator 2, modulator 3, noise 1, and noise 2. And as you'll see, these different modes can make some really interesting, crazy sounds. That's somewhat like a ring modulator that you might hear, and in certain cases this thing can really sound nasty. Let's put it on the chorus control that I like for the oscillator wave shape. Also, I forgot to mention, the orange capped slider here is called balance, and with balance you can control the balance between the original oscillator synth voice and the second oscillator. They're still going through the same filter set, but the balance gives you essentially a mixed control on your two oscillators. So that's only the initial oscillator down here. All the way up is going to be only the second oscillator. But I usually like to have it in the middle to get a good mix of both. So the other two modulator modes are something like ring mod as well. So here's modulator 2. I just love the sound of that bandpass with that complex, rich harmonic content of the two oscillators together. Here's modulator 3. And then noise. It's not true white noise mixed in. Korg likes to say that these are musical noise mixed in. I'm not sure exactly what that means, but let's just take a listen. Actually, for noise, why don't we just use only the second oscillator? So you can hear that there's white noise, but there's also some tonic content as well that tracks with the keyboard. And then here's noise 2. Again, only just the noise part. And then mixed. Noise 1. And then just to round out the rest of the controls in this section, we've got a sustain long switch, which changes the nature of the sustain. You can hear it. So in some envelopes, you might call that the decay stage instead of sustain. There's a really fast decay. I'm sorry, a long one. And here's the short one. And then the final switch that we have here is called Travel Vibrato. And what this does is it introduces the vibrato to the filter and not just the traveler in Korg parlance, and not just the oscillator. Did you hear that? I didn't explain so far, but this keyboard, to my hands, I love it. It feels like butter. It's so easy to play. And the original miniKORG did not have aftertouch, but check this out. This one does, and it's great. So that's essentially all the controls for the synthesizer that we've covered so far. I think that's everything, in case I'm missing something. There is a master pitch all the way on the right here. But what we haven't looked at so far are these buttons. And one thing that's really great if you're going to play the miniKORG with a band or out, at a gig, now we've got memory. So for this demo so far, we've been in panel mode. So it's great just to hit panel, and then what you see is what you get on the synthesizer controls. But of course, you've got multiple banks and multiple memory slots. Here's preset number 1, which is a famous Korg style whistle. So you might hear Kitaro play that or something. But let's tick through the rest of these first bank of presets. Also, I realized I forgot to mention the joystick. So the original did not have a joystick, but of course, if you want to express yourself with pitch bend, joystick is really nice. So it's nice that it's here. So to the left and to the right bends your pitch. And then up and down introduce modulation called modulation A and B. And we might have to save that for a future demo because I don't know exactly what they do, but they do sound cool. Looks like this one is just introducing more, opening up the Traveler a little bit. All right, so on to preset number 4. This is what I really love about the miniKORG, those growly bass sounds. They sound a little bit unstable, and then when you start using the Traveler, it really comes alive. So here's one with the repeat engaged. I'm going to turn on hold so I can play it like an arpeggiator. So here we have one of the 1973 miniKORGs, the original synthesizer from Korg. And you can see it's a bit different from what we've been seeing in the 700FS. So first of all, this being the original, there's no second oscillator here. The keyboard feels, a bit different, and no presets, of course, being from the 70s. But you can see some similarities. So on the bottom row, you can see most of the same controls, and they share the same colors. What you don't see is the spring reverb, which this unit does not have. You don't see the hold button, but pretty much everything else is the same. There is one difference though on the Traveler. So you might notice that the Traveler on this unit allows the two sliders to pass each other, whereas in the original Korg 700FS that we showed you, it doesn't. So what the previous owner of this unit did, they actually shaved off the plastic parts that prevented these knobs from passing each other. And, some people did prefer that. They preferred kind of the darker, more closed down sound. It has the effect of reducing the width of your bandpass filter. And Korg thought, well, you can have it both ways with the new 700FS because they provided these knobs, a bag of knobs that don't have the notch on them. So you can choose whichever ones you want. Just pop the old ones off, pop these on, and you can have it both ways. So on this miniKORG, the originals didn't have, of course there's no MIDI, no USB. The keyboard on this one feels still okay, but it's more like an organ keyboard and not like the buttery, beautiful keyboard that's on the ARP 2600FS and the Korg 700FS. However, it's nice to show these two together, and perhaps in a future video, we can compare the sound between this guy and the brand new one. Alright, so there you have it. This is our first look at the Korg 700FS. There's so much more ground to cover, especially with all the synth sounds that you can make on this thing. We didn't really even scratch the surface. However, future videos, cross fingers, we'll make some more. I'd like to explore the CV and gate on the back. So we've got CV and gate, we've got sync. So you could really integrate this into a modular studio if you'd like. And of course, it's got USB MIDI, DIN MIDI input on the back. So you can use Korg 700FS however you make music. And it's wonderful. So thank you, Korg. This is a really beautiful instrument. We're honored to have it here at Patchwerks. And we'll see you next time. Thanks.